Siege is a hard game, so if you want to know the operators to play to get better, here are the 12 best solo queue defenders in Rainbow Six Siege. Starting off in the number 12th spot, which is going to Doc. Doc, I think, is an amazing solo queue operator for one specific reason. And no, it's not actually because of his healing. It's mainly because he's pretty versatile. If you have the ability to set up sight, which he does with his bailiff, and you have the ability to have information as well, that usually makes you a good solo queue operator. Doc can either bring a BP for information and information denial, or he can bring barbed wire for damage and information. He has, again, the bailiff for sight setup, but he also has two great guns that bring ACOGs on both of them with very low recoil. If you don't want that though, he has one of the best shotguns in the entire game, making him not only good for utility, but also good for getting kills as well. Not to mention, his actual healing is very nice. You have the ability to heal people to full HP with one stim, even if they're in a down state. So compared to Thunderbird and Rook, Doc is the best healer in the entire game. That paired up with his good loadout is why I had to put him on the top 12 spot, but from here, these operators are only going to get better and better, so make sure that you stick to the end, because number 11 is going to go to Jaeger. Like I said, versatility is what makes a good solo queue operator, and Jaeger brings a lot of things. He has a BP for information, he has a pretty solid assault rifle primary, and his ADSs are where the versatility on this operator shines the most. You're able to catch any flash grenades, frag grenades, EMPs in the middle of the air, Ash projectiles, Zofia projectiles, literally anything thrown by an operator, and anything shot by an operator other than Hibana pellets or Capital bolts. With Wamai losing his ACOG, Jaeger just seems like the better choice to most people, including myself. So if you want the ability to be able to catch throwable utility that you know the enemy is going to bring, especially on super open-ended maps, Jaeger is the best operator on the entire defense that you can pick for this job right now. His ADSs also don't just catch 3 pieces of utility. They actually recharge and have an infinite number of charges after just a few seconds of being inactive, meaning that if you're going against a coordinated stack, Jaeger becomes a lot less useful. But if you're in a solo queue environment, chances are so are your teammates, meaning that Jaeger gets increasingly more valuable the worse your enemy team is, which is why Jaeger is one of the best solo queue operators for the majority of the player base. An operator that's even better than Jaeger though for solo queue is Kapkan. Kapkan's ability, if you play it correctly, is almost a guaranteed kill every single round without you having to actually get into a gunfight. If you're playing against an enemy team that is rushing a lot, you can easily put Kapkan traps where you know they won't see them, but you know they will be pushing, gaining you a free kill the better you are with your Kapkan traps. Most people don't realize how high of a skill ceiling you can have when playing Kapkan in terms of the placement of his traps, not only where you're putting them, but where on the doorway you're putting them, pairing it up with barricades, things of that nature. And if that explosive power wasn't enough, he also brings a nitro cell. You can weaken people with Kapkan traps by putting 1 people on each doorway to finish them off with your nitro cell, or you can get a guaranteed kill with 3 Kapkan traps and a guaranteed second kill with a nitro cell, especially if they're running shields, which a lot of people are doing right now. One thing I do want to mention is PC is riddled with cheaters right now, and I don't recommend going Kapkan against cheaters because if they are walling, they actually can see traps with their wall hacks too. But even if you're not able to counter wall hackers, you're able to counter the majority of the player base that isn't walling. Kapkan's SMG is also no joke. It has 34 damage per shot with 31 bullets in the magazine. It has also very low recoil, and he brings one of the best secondary pistols, if not the best secondary pistol in the entire game, the PMM handgun, which does 61 damage per shot. So in terms of pure destructive power and damage to enemies, Kapkan is second to none when it comes to how much damage he can output to any unsuspecting attacker, which is why he is one of the best solo queue operators in the entire game. Speaking of trap operators, my next operator is going to be Frost. The reason that I think Frost is slightly better than Kapkan is purely because of her loadout. Where Kapkan does bring a good SMG and a nitro cell, Frost brings an SMG with an ACOG and a deployable shield, but also on top of that, she brings a secondary shotgun. So she can do everything that Kapkan can, but also she's able to set up the site, which is something that I talked about being extremely important, especially when we were talking about Doc earlier. The ability to set up site makes it to where you can help your team and help yourself, especially with the ability to have an ACOG and a low recoil SMG. The shotgun allows you to get crazy angles on the people with that ACOG that you normally wouldn't have been able to do with other operators. She can also sit behind that deployable shield to get these same exact angles, and then she has 3 frost mats that can get downs and at worst can at least give you information when people shoot them or melee them. I think Frost and Kapkan are alike, whereas most people don't really know the true skill ceiling of their gadgets, and even if you don't use their gadget correctly, just their loadout alone can make them one of the best solo queue operators in the entire game. Now, the past 2 operators you might not have actually seen coming, but I guarantee you saw the next operator coming, which is Valkyrie. Now again, when I was talking about Doc, I talked about how information and site setup are the 2 things that make a great versatile solo queue operator, and Valkyrie can bring both of these things. She has actual cameras that can give you information, and she she has a deagle that can be used for sight setup. Not only that, but if people are running shields, you can get a nitro cell kill onto shields, or at least do a bunch of damage to them, and the ability to have a nitro cell pre-placed paired up with a Valkyrie cam, almost like you do on Pulse, makes her even more lethal. But the main part about why she is so good, aside from the fact that she has the MPX, is the fact that she has her Black Eye Valkyrie cameras. These things are so small and so hidden, and you can throw them anywhere you want to, meaning that the better you are at having pre-placed Valkyrie cameras, the better you're going to be as Valkyrie. The only thing stopping her from being higher on this list is that Valkyrie is only extremely valuable if your teammates are on your cameras when they die. Chances are, when you're solo queuing, that's not going to happen. And even if they are on your cameras, chances are they're not going to be giving callouts, and they'll just be yellow pinging, if that. So I'd put her higher if this was a list for coordinated stacks, but unfortunately this is a solo queue list, so I couldn't really in good faith put her any higher than she is. Someone who is much more solo queue friendly though would be Mute. Now when it comes to versatility on a defending operator, this operator is second to absolutely nobody. To show you this, I'm purely going to be talking about his ability, the Signal Disruptor. The Signal Disruptor does a lot of things. Namely, it stops any electronic gadgets from being able to work when they're within its radius. It stops things like drones. If you put it on a reinforced wall, it can stop any hard breaches. If you step in the Mute Jammer, it stops you from being tracked by Deimos and Dokkaebi. It can even allow you to move in a Lion Scan or in Grim Bees if you're also within the radius of the Mute Jammer. You also have 4 of these jammers, meaning that you can do everything that I just talked about with 1 jammer each, allowing you to have multiple different ways that you can set up the site as a Mute player every single time that you go to a site. Because of the thousands of ways that you can play Mute in terms of versatility, again, he is second to nobody. But that's not where his versatility ends, because Mute is also able to set up sight. He has the M5 90A1 shotgun, which is brought on all of the standard SAS operators and Warden, which is great for getting kills and setting up sight, as well as the SMG-11. The SMG-11, if you're good with it, allows you to take those long-range gunfights, whereas the shotgun can cover your close-range ones, meaning that not only is he versatile with his ability, but he's also versatile with what gunfights he's allowing himself to take. Mute can also bring a nitro cell to be able to actually kill people, which makes him even more of a versatile operator. He's even able to counter shields really well, not only because of his nitro cell, but if a blitz is inside of his Mute Jammer, the blitz's flash won't even work, meaning that you can sit in a Mute Jammer, and when the blitz pushes you, you nitro cell him, shoot him with your shotgun so he can't run, and then it's a guaranteed kill. Because of just how much this operator is able to do, with how easy it is to do it, I had to put Mute not only on this list, but high on the list as well. Somebody who is a bit higher on this list than Mute, though, is Vigil. Now, I know what you're saying. Vigil is a selfish operator and doesn't bring as much utility as Mute, so how could Vigil possibly be higher on a list? Well, again, this is a solo queue list. This is not a stack list. If it were a team list, I would put Mute above Vigil, but because you're solo queuing and you can't really rely on your teammates to help you out and play inside of your Mute Jammers as you want them to, Mute just is not as reliable as somebody like Vigil is. At least with Vigil, you're able to use his scan whenever you want to help yourself. You also have impact grenades to counter shields, and you can bring a Boss G if you want to be able to help set up sight and to get one-shot downs when you hold angles. It is one of the most broken guns in the entire game, and he also brings the SMG-12, which is arguably the best secondary SMG in the entire game if you're able to control it. If you don't like the Boss G, he also brings an amazing SMG as a primary, which is the K1A. So in terms of his loadout, Vigil is absolutely stacked, arguably just as much as Mute is. Not only can he make it to where he can't be seen on drones, but he's also able to counter Deimos, he's able to counter Lion, and he's able to counter Grim, just like Mute can as well. Vigil is essentially just Mute, but for one person at all time, and in a solo queue environment that is increasingly more valuable than an inconsistent one for all players. I think Vigil is an extremely good solo queue operator and arguably the best roamer in the game right now, but if you want to switch him and Mute in either one of their places on this list, I can pretty much understand why. Somebody who outclasses both of those operators, in my opinion, is Goyo. Every single time there is a Goyo on the board when you play a ranked game against a Goyo, you're essentially racing against the clock, because each Goyo canister lasts 20 seconds each, totaling to a total of a minute 20 of the round that you just aren't able to walk into the bomb site, which is just a little under half the round that Goyo can waste just by putting his canisters down. The best part about why Goyo is such a good solo queue operator, though, is because it doesn't need to be you that activates the canisters, whereas Smoke and Tachanka both need to be the one that deploys their area denial. Your teammates can shoot the Goyo canisters, and it can be activated even by enemies if they destroy it, or they maybe pull down a barricade that your Goyo is on, or destroy a reinforcement that your Goyo is on. Because you're not so self-reliant on your operator getting value, and he's able to waste the most amount of time and have the biggest amount of area covered by his area denial, he is, in my opinion, the best aerial denial operator for the solo queue environment in general. Not to mention his loadout is even just as versatile. He has the option of either the Vector with an ACOG, which is a great SMG, or the TCSG, which is a great slug shotgun that not only can be good for getting kills and is extremely accurate if you can control the recoil, but also it can be used to set up sight. If you know that your teammates aren't bringing shotguns or impacts to make rotates or head holes, you can do all of it by yourself because the TCSG has the facilities to do it. He is also able to bring impact grenades to counter shields, as if his ability didn't do that enough already, making him the perfect shield counter, rush counter, and one of the most perfect solo queue operators in the entire game. Now, somebody who is just as good, but honestly slightly just a little bit better than Goyo in my opinion, is Melusi. The reason that I think Melusi is just slightly better than Goyo is because if you use Melusi Banshees everywhere around the site, you are guaranteed to have that area locked down. Whereas with Goyo, you have to actually shoot the canister to lock the area down, making Melusi a lot more solo queue friendly because it doesn't require you or your teammates to activate the ability for it to work. It gets activated automatically. If we want to talk about her loadout though, let's do it, because she has impacts in order to impact trick walls or hatches or to counter shields. She also has the ITA shotgun to help her set up sights or to be a good secondary along with her primary, the MP5 SMG. We talked about this on Doc being a very low recoil SMG, and with the ability to only have 1x scopes on this gun, the recoil seems even better when you play Melusi. She's also a 3 armor, meaning she has more health to be able to anchor, and because you have 4 Banshees now instead of 3, you're able to anchor and hold down the site with information a lot better than you normally would have with any other operator. So in terms of wanting to give your teammates information to hold down a site and to be able to do a lot of things and have a lot of versatility, Melusi is very good. But there's somebody that does her job just slightly better and without impact grenades. And from here, we're going to be going over the 3 best solo queue defenders. Now, the person that's slightly better than Melusi is Lesion. The reason that Lesion I think is slightly better than Melusi is because he has more goo mines, meaning that he has more points of contact for information, meaning he brings more information overall. The only issue with him is that he has a rechargeable ability, meaning that you have to stay alive longer in the round to be able to get usefulness out of him. But if you are able to do so, which doesn't really take much, just don't go run and gun like you're playing Vigil, then he's even better than any of the operators we've talked about so far. If you go into his loadout, he has the T5 SMG, which is one of the best SMGs in the game. He also has the Super Shorty, which is great for making yourself sight setups, and if you ADS, can actually be surprisingly good for killing people as well. And then he has a bulletproof camera to be able to zap any drones or any electronic attacker utility coming into the bomb site. It's also just a great point of contact for information, which Lesion already specializes in with his ability, which is why Lesion is such a good solo queue defender. Speaking of his ability, let's talk about it for a second. Legion's ability is great. Not only does it give you immense amounts of points of contact to be able to get information from, but also these things do 5 initial damage on impact, meaning that enough of these mines will actually kill people if they keep running into them. It also completely slows shields down, making it to where they can't sprint at you, and it puts them in a really bad situation if they have to pull the goo mine out and there's no safe place for them to do so. They'll either die to you whenever they try to pull the goo mine out, or they'll either die to the goo mine eventually over time. The damage on these things stacks as well, meaning that if there's multiple goo mines, they'll take multiple hits of damage on the initial damage, and they'll take multiple ticks of damage per goo mine in their foot. And also the trade-off for these things not being invisible anymore means that they actually have a larger radius of effect, so you don't have to put them in the middle of doorways and in the middle of staircases. You can actually put them on the side, making them more hidden than they were previously, and they will still get hits onto players. The only thing that kind of sucks about Lesion now is the fact that he doesn't have impact grenades, but I think the rest of his kit completely makes up for, and he is still one of the best solo queue defenders in the entire game, hands down. But now that we've gone over Lesion, it's time to talk about the 2 best defending solo queue operators in the entire game. Coming into second place, which might surprise some of you, is Fenrir. If you've been watching Pro League this season at all, or maybe you've just been playing in higher elo, this is going to come to no surprise. But to people who saw his nerfs this season and thought he was going to be a lot worse this season, you're actually kind of wrong. Fenrir is still amazing. Just because his utility isn't bulletproof anymore doesn't change that fact. The ability to shoot Fenrir mines is great, but the trade-off for that is that you can just hide your Fenrir mines better and they won't know where to shoot it. Also, if there's a Fenrir mine somewhere, typically somebody is ready to swing off of it, so by the time somebody gets blinded, they find the FNAT and shoot it, they're probably already going to be dead anyways. Not to mention, whenever you shoot a Fenrir mine, they get the hack back and they can just put it on a different Fenrir mine, so that's an indirect buff to Fenrir as well, meaning he's pretty much just as strong as he was before the nerf, just slightly weaker, not as much to be really notable though. Moving on from his actual ability though, let's talk about his loadout. Like I said, information and sight setup is the key to making a good solo queue operator. He has information with his mines, but he also has information with bulletproof cameras, or observation blockers if you want information denial to be able to cover up your FNAT dread mines so they don't get shot as easily. He has the sight setup to be able to make with the bailiff, or if you're running the shotgun pistol combo for whatever reason, you can do that with that too. Don't do that though. And then his MP7 is great. If you've been playing Bandit for a few years, you know that, and the ability to bring that on Fenrir is just absolutely amazing. Overall, the ability to blind people for free kills if you're playing off of your utility correctly makes Fenrir a strong operator, and he always will be, so on the off chance he is unbanned, I definitely recommend playing over all other operators in a solo queue environment. Well, all other operators except for one, which is the best solo queue defender in all of Rainbow Six Siege right now, and to absolutely zero people's surprise, this is Azami. Azami brings literally everything you could possibly want in a solo queue operator, aside from maybe information. First of all, not even going over her amazing ability, let's just talk about her loadout. She brings the 9x91 SMG, which on Capcan I stated earlier is a good SMG. She also brings the ACS-12. If you're holding long angles or pixel peaks with your Azami barricades, this is a very good gun to run. It also has an ACOG, meaning you can spawn peek with it, or again, to hold very long angles on large maps. It has the ability to make sight setup, which also her Deagle has the option to do if you're not running that and you're running the SMG instead. So no matter what you do, you have the ability to make sight setup. This is further reinforced by the fact that you also have impact grenades. Although, if you have the Deagle, I wouldn't really waste impact grenades because you can also use these to counter shields. You can use these to counter OSA, or to get any Hibana pellets off of your Azami barricade without destroying the Azami barricade, or to impact tricked to deny walls. And if you don't like that, you can always run barbed wire for information and extra damage below windows or in front of doorways or on staircases. And that already makes a crazy good solo queue operator, but we haven't even scratched the surface because there's one thing we haven't talked about: her ability, the Kiba barrier. The Kiba barrier is amazing because it's a knife that you throw that deploys on a surface, meaning that you can throw these anywhere you want to, above you, below you, on a wall, out of your reach. It doesn't matter. It is a ranged ability, which makes it so good. It also deploys a concrete barrier that isn't necessarily bulletproof, but it is bullet resistant. So you can sit behind these like a deployable shield, or if you get really good with Azami, you can make your own pixel lineups or copy some from other YouTubers like me to be able to get insane angles that are uncounterable on the attack. Unless they get lucky and spray randomly through your pixel peak that you have, it is a guaranteed kill if you're playing Azami and they push where you're playing. And the best part about it is, even if they try to shoot your Azami barricade, you can swing them as they're doing that, giving you a free kill anyways. If they do manage to destroy your utility with any destructible utility or just by shooting it, you also have 4 more of these barricades that you can deploy to refresh them as many times as you want. She can also use these vertically, and there's not a single piece of vertical destruction other than RAM that can get rid of these devices when they're deployed vertically, meaning that if there is a buck or a sledge, Azami can almost completely counter them as well. Azami can cover drone holes to deny information. Azami can recover up holes made by Hibana or Ace that they can't open if they've wasted all their utility. Azami can block off doorways or archways or windows that were previously opened to waste time or to get a free kill on or to get information on. Overall, making Azami, in terms of her pure ability alone, the best operator on defense for solo queue, for a team environment, or arguably in the entire game. Not to mention her loadout is exceptionally good as well, making Azami, bar none, the best solo queue defender in all of Rainbow Six Siege. Let me know if I missed an operator. My name's Alka. Check out this next video, and I hope I'll see you there.